Liam Hayes was the kind of man who had everything: power, wealth, and a fiancée who seemed to adore him. But once a week, he stepped away from the high-rises and boardrooms to visit a place that reminded him what truly mattered: the children's hospital he funded. Among the many children he'd come to know, one stood out: Emily, an 8-year-old battling leukemia. With a headscarf covering her thinning hair and an IV drip by her side, she had a spark that made Liam forget about corporate wars. She didn't want pity. She wanted a challenge. Chess became their thing, and today she had just surprised him with a checkmate. As he smiled in defeat, Emily suddenly leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There's a camera in your office, behind the painting." The words landed like a thunderclap. Liam blinked, caught off guard. "What did you say?" Emily shrugged as if it were nothing. "Your girlfriend said it on the phone when she was here last week. I wasn't asleep like she thought. I heard her. She said, he has no idea there's a camera behind the painting in his office." Then she moved her knight and asked, "Your turn." Liam's pulse quickened. He brushed it off with a smile for Emily's sake, but inside, alarms were going off. That night, back in his sleek, quiet office, curiosity gave way to suspicion. He stared at the large abstract painting on his wall and reached behind it. His breath caught: there it was. A small, hidden camera tucked neatly out of sight. Shock. Anger. Betrayal. His mind raced. Anna, the woman he was planning to marry, had been in his office often. Could it be true? Had she really been spying on him? And why? He didn't know what hurt more, the hidden device or the realization that someone he trusted may have deceived him. But one thing was certain: Emily had no reason to lie. Her quiet whisper had shattered a perfect illusion. And that simple act of honesty from a sick little girl in a hospital bed had just changed everything. Liam knew what he had to do next. Liam sat alone in his high-rise office, the city lights glittering beyond the glass windows like a million silent witnesses. The silence felt heavier than usual. Emily's whisper echoed in his mind, looping with unsettling clarity. He didn't want it to be true. Anna had been his anchor through the storms of corporate life, always calm, always supportive. They had plans: a wedding, a life together. Could it all have been a lie? With a deep breath, Liam approached the painting that hung just above the credenza, an abstract splash of color he'd chosen more for its aesthetics than meaning. He reached behind it, fingers tracing the frame, and then he felt it. Small. Cold. Mechanical. His stomach sank. Carefully, he pulled it free, a tiny pinhole camera, expertly embedded. His chest tightened. Not just because of the device itself, but because of what it represented. Trust, shattered in a heartbeat. He stared at the camera as if it could somehow explain everything. Why? What did she hope to find? Had it all been part of a plan? He slumped into his chair, the weight of betrayal sinking in. But Liam wasn't a man to let emotions cloud judgment. He needed answers. And if Anna was watching him, then he would let her. Only this time, he'd be the one directing the scene. He called in his cybersecurity chief under the guise of a late-night review. Together, they discreetly rerouted the camera feed to an isolated server, then reinstalled it behind the painting, untouched, exactly where it had been. Now, he had a live window into whoever was pulling the strings. This wasn't about catching someone red-handed out of spite. It was about protecting everything he'd built: his company, his legacy, and perhaps most unexpectedly, the quiet trust placed in him by a little girl named Emily. She saw what he didn't. And now, Liam was ready to see the truth for himself. The next evening, Liam sat alone in the office, the lights dimmed, the only glow coming from the screen in front of him. The footage had been recording silently for days, and now it played back in cold, undeniable truth. There she was, Anna. Entering his office with ease, her movements confident, familiar. She glanced around, then walked straight to his desk, pulled out a USB drive from her bag, and began copying files from his private server. Liam's throat tightened. These weren't just harmless documents, they were confidential blueprints, sensitive investor data, proprietary code. Information worth millions. The footage continued. A few minutes later, Anna stepped aside and took out her phone. Her voice was low, but the system had captured enough. "Yes, I have them. He doesn't suspect a thing. I'll send the files tonight." Her tone was calm. Cold. Professional. Liam leaned back, numb. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was premeditated. Calculated. The woman he had trusted with his heart, his future, his life, had been using him as a stepping stone to empower his enemies. Anger surged in his chest, followed by a heavy wave of grief. He had loved her. He had defended her when others doubted. He had imagined building a life with her. Now it all crumbled under the weight of her betrayal. But as he sat there, staring at the screen, one thought rose above the rest: Emily. She had no reason to warn him. No benefit to gain. Just a child, weakened by illness, yet strong enough to speak up when something felt wrong. In a world full of deception, her voice had been the only truth. The whisper of a little girl had saved him from losing everything. And at that moment, Liam realized, sometimes the greatest wisdom doesn't come from boardrooms or billion-dollar deals, it comes from the quiet honesty of a child who simply chooses to tell the truth. A soft breeze drifted across the hospital rooftop, where fairy lights twinkled like stars strung just for this moment. Nurses, doctors, and a few children gathered quietly, creating a gentle circle around a scene none of them would forget. In the center sat Emily, bundled in a blanket, her eyes wide with curiosity and wonder. Her wheelchair had been decorated with ribbons, and her face lit up as Liam Hayes stepped forward. Gone was the polished CEO in a designer suit. This Liam looked different, humbled, raw, real. He knelt in front of her, holding a small velvet box, his hands trembling ever so slightly. "I came here today with something important," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Not a business deal. Not a donation. But a thank you." He opened the box, revealing a delicate gold pendant shaped like a chess queen, its tiny crown sparkling under the lights. "For the smartest girl I know," he said, smiling through misty eyes. "You saw the truth before I did. You didn't have to say anything, but you did. You protected me. So now," he paused, steadying his voice. "It's my turn." He turned to the hospital director. "I'm funding a brand new pediatric cancer wing, state-of-the-art, fully equipped. And I want to name it Emily's Hope." Emily gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Really?" He nodded, tears now freely running down his cheeks. "Because you saved me, Emily. And I want your name to be part of saving others." Around them, silence gave way to soft applause, sniffles, and smiles. Emily's eyes shimmered with tears, but her smile was radiant. It wasn't just a gift. It was a legacy. In that moment, beneath the glow of fairy lights and the weight of everything they'd both endured, Liam had made the most important proposal of his life, not to a partner in romance, but to a cause far bigger than himself. And a little girl had become a queen in more ways than one. 1 year later, the hospital was buzzing with life. Bright murals covered the walls of a brand new wing, laughter echoed down the hallways, and colorful balloons danced in the summer breeze outside the sliding glass doors. Above the entrance hung a gleaming plaque that read, "Emily's Hope Wing, where bravery lives." Children in gowns raced toy cars, nurses smiled as they guided parents through check-ins, and doctors discussed treatments with renewed energy. Everything about the space felt warm, alive, and full of promise. Liam stood quietly near the entrance, hands in his pockets, watching it all unfold. He wasn't there for cameras or credit. He was there for Emily. Though she hadn't lived to see this day, her presence was everywhere, in the name on the wall, in the spirit of every child helped, in the courage she'd passed on. Her chess queen pendant now hung in a shadow box inside the lobby, right beneath a photo of her with Liam on the rooftop, both smiling, both forever changed. Liam took a deep breath, a mix of sorrow and pride swelling in his chest. A year ago, he'd been on the edge, fooled, broken, betrayed. But a sick little girl with a quiet voice had changed the course of his life with just one whisper. She didn't just help him uncover the truth, she showed him who he really was. Not just a CEO or a millionaire, but someone capable of doing something lasting, something good. He turned to leave, but not before glancing back at the plaque one more time. Sometimes, the loudest lessons come from the smallest voices. And sometimes, heartbreak opens the door to a legacy that can heal the world. Liam walked away smiling, knowing that Emily's hope was no longer just a name. It was a living, breathing force, saving lives, one whisper at a time.